Welcome to J Sports, Detroit Lions News Podcast on the J Sports YouTube page. You can catch every episode on the J Sports YouTube page, and you can catch on Detroit Lions News Podcast, wherever you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, iHeart. Subscribe, rate, review, and subscribe to the channel below. Obviously, we're going to kick it off with some good Lions content. We're going to kick it off with some Red Wings content, Tigers, all the Detroit sports you can ever imagine. Michigan State, we're all going to have it here. But this one that I'm talking about is a little bit different, right? We all know the deal about Anzarike being out for the year. We all know that Josh Pascal is out till early September, and that sure seemed tentative from Jeff Risden's comment. We know that Ray Straw left the camp yesterday with a chest injury. We know that Sion Vaki left today with the injury. We know that there is players not participating today because of injuries, or maybe they got nicks or something like that. I just do want to caution people. You don't really want to overreact to injuries during the preseason, because here's the thing. A lot of times, these teams are going to use preseason, and the Detroit Lions have a longer preseason than any of the other teams. I would not be surprised if Dan Campbell is giving these players some good rest, some good relaxation, alternating days and all that stuff. Any little nick, any little hurt, any little bruise, any little cut, I think he's going to take the utmost precautions. So I wouldn't really worry from that standpoint. I mean, I think you're going to see a lot more guys go out with injuries for the Detroit Lions because of what happened last year with the 18 players on injured reserve. And, I was one of the people who said last year, when you had all those players go down, and I said after a Buffalo Bills game, and I posted it on my Facebook, and I posted on the Detroit Lions News podcast page. I said it. I said, look, this Detroit Lions team is not winning a Super Bowl because of all the injuries that they've sustained. I mean, Ali McNeil is still out. He will be out till probably Thanksgiving. Hutch is coming back from a serious injury. We'll see how he responds. There's a lot of questions about this team. Marcus Davenport can't stay healthy. Pascal is already, he'll be back in September. Jeez, nice. Kid can't stay healthy worth a damn. It just thing after thing after thing for the Detroit Lions. And, I'd rather have some of the nicks and the injuries right now, because, we're going to get down to cut day, and there's going to be some players that are cut based on their salary cap, based on whether the team believes they're not a fit. Maybe there's a new coach involved, and he's like, I don't like this guy. I don't want him around. And there's some fits that he can have. Obviously, when we look at the Detroit Lions defensive tackle room with obviously Ali McNeil out, we know that Levi Anzarike is out. Here's the line: Miles Adams, Keith Cooper, the rookie from Houston. I do like that guy. Roy Lopez is an interesting figure. Broderick Martin, who we're all waiting for him to do something. Pat O'Connor was a revelation last year. Chris Smith from Notre Dame. He's 2 years removed from that. Michigan State's Raekwon Williams, who I loved Raekwon when he was at Michigan State. He played pretty well with Tennessee a couple years ago. So hopefully he can rekindle that. And then Tyleik Williams, the defensive lineman from the Ohio State University. What's fascinating to me about this whole injury situation is twofold. If you look around the NFC North, if you just look around the NFC North, every team is relying on young players to take the next step, whether it be a rookie, whether it be a second round guy, a second year guy like JJ McCarthy for the Minnesota Vikings, whether it be a second year quarterback like Caleb Williams with the new coach, Luther Bolden. There's guys that are in this division that they're going to be asked to grow quickly. And, when you look at that and you say, okay, Green Bay's, they need a guy like Bolden to help them out. JJ McCarthy, the quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings, there's no telling what a quarterback is going to do. There's no telling what the ceiling is for the kid. There's no telling what the potential is for the kid. Obviously, he's in a really great situation, but it is what it is. And for Detroit, they got Tate Ratledge that is going to try to play meaningful minutes. He's going to be a center, which is probably one of the most meaningful positions you could play on the offensive line because of how you're, communicating with your players, how you're communicating with your offensive lineman, how you're communicating with the quarterback, all that jazz. Then you got Tyleek Williams, who is going to probably be inserted into the lineup. And from early indications, he's been asked to play the first string defensive tackle with Azarike out and with Illy McNeil out. And just looking around the division, there's a lot of teams that are relying on young players to get them out. And this is where I really would like to see Brett Holmes do some magic because obviously, like I said, there's going to be players that are going to be cut. There's going to be players that are going to be up for a trade. And Brett Holmes needs to be active on that. Obviously, last year, what he did with the Detroit Lions was pretty remarkable, if we're going to be completely honest with each other. This team did not win the Super Bowl last year, and they did not win a playoff game last year. But the reality of the situation is you won 15 games with a hodgepodge of defensive players. Like, you had to play perfect offensive ball to win every freaking football game that you could possibly win. It's no slight at Brad Holmes. It's no slight at Dan Campbell. It's no slight at Jared Goff. You just ran out of ammunition. You really did. When your team is asked to score 40 points every game, 30 points to keep up with it. I was talking with the guys from the Commanders podcast, Jay and Todd, and they asked me before the podcast, they go, "What's the one way you feel like Detroit would lose this game?" And I told them straight up, I go, "Look, we got to score 30 to 40 points to win this football game." And we scored a good amount of points, but we gave some, turnovers away. So even even scoring as many they did, they still had to play perfect ball to win that game. Their defense was the Lions' defense was not stopping Jaden Daniels. And be honest with yourself. Be lucky that you got beat by Jaden Daniels, because it probably would have been worse with the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, just think about Saquon Barkley running through your defense with Levi Onwuzurike, their defensive tackle, no Hutch, no no Malcolm Rodriguez, no Derek Barnes, like Alex Lanzalone with one arm. Like, you just ran out of bodies. I told people after that Buffalo Bills game, I go, look, people are still going to have Super Bowl aspirations, but I don't. I feel like the Super Bowl aspirations is dead. And I said that because it wasn't to be, reactionary. It wasn't to have some hot take or something like that. This is how football works, and you need to be healthy. And I implored Dan Campbell and the coaching staff to take every little precaution that they can. If a player gets injured, even if it's like a little boo boo, you know, this is a long preseason for this Detroit Lions team. They got 4 preseason games, so they need to kind of watch themselves. Last year you got into the season, you didn't lose Hutch until the Dallas game. You lost to Lee McNeil at the Buffalo game. You lost, Barnes, and you lost Manzalone, and you just every week it was someone new that was dropping, and it's just there's only so much you can handle. But I feel better that there's injuries that might be injuries right now, so Brad Holmes can take the right course of action. Because once you get into the season, there's several things that play at hand. If you go get someone, is he going to be a fit in your locker room? Because not everyone's available, right? If you get this guy, does he fit your system? That's some of the things that they weigh. And Brad Holmes got Zadarius Smith last year, and he did a damn good job. And I do think Zadarius Smith will be back for the Detroit Lions. And we'll see what Brad Holmes has in store for this Detroit Lions team. But I'm not going to overreact to the proposed injuries that are happening with the Detroit Lions, because the reality of the situation is this. Last year, I saw what happened when the Detroit Lions had every player injured on their defense, man. Literally every player injured on the defense, and they still won 15 games. This schedule you got is a lot harder, but what last year showed me is how well your roster is built. That you can still win 15 games with 18 guys on IR, because that usually does not happen. Usually there's an order of attrition where it happens a lot quicker than the um, divisional round. So the Detroit Lions were lucky there, but we'll see what happens with the Detroit Lions moving forward as they go through the preseason and training camp. And there's going to be a lot more chances for this team to have some injuries going into the regular season. So knock on wood, they don't have any injuries. But one thing I do know is Brett Holmes put together a hell of a roster last year to get this team to 15 wins, and I don't think he won't do that again. He's a great general manager, and this team has depth, man. They do have depth, and the one thing I can say about this Detroit Lions team is when you do get a Lee McNeil back, um, you're going to be a force to be reckoned with, man. You are going to be a force to be reckoned with. I think this secondary is going to be one of the best secondaries in the league. I think the linebacker core is sneaky underrated. And I think this defensive line, when it's healthy, could be a really damn good defensive line. And if they add Zadarius Smith, that's even better. But we'll see what happens with the Detroit Lions. Obviously, a lot of injuries are coming out. And if you read the publications from Pride of Detroit or Detroit Lions News, Detroit News, or Detroit Free Press, they're all talking about the injuries. And we'll see what happens with the Detroit Lions moving forward. But as always, if you like the video, subscribe below, comment if you disagree with me, and we'll talk about it on the Detroit Lions News podcast every time on JC Sports. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.